my first guest, and I'm very excited to have him, Lieutenant Colonel Robert McGinnis. Now, Bob is a Washington, D.C.-based broadcast national security and foreign policy analyst. He has 22 years of deep experience speaking on really tough issues. You've seen him, as I said, on Fox News and CNN. As a matter of fact, he's scheduled to be on Fox News Business with Lou Dobbs tonight at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time. So check your listings, and you can watch him tonight after hearing him here live today. So you've got this brand new book you've written. I love the title and the things that I've been reading about it, and the press releases and the teasers. Never Submit: Will the Extermination of Christians Get Worse Before It Gets Better? So tell us about the book, generally whatever you want to tell us about it, just to introduce us to it, and then and answer the question of your subtitle. Will the extermination of Christians get worse before it gets better? What's the answer that you give in your book?
Yeah, it will get worse, and as we've seen every night on the news, that Christians are really not only fleeing but being killed. They're being sacrificed at the hands of groups like ISIS. And of course, even when we bring refugees out of that part of the world into the United States, 6 out of 7 happen to be Muslims, and yet it's the Christians who are facing genocide. The title, frankly, is in your face.
Yes, it is.
The verb noun Islam means submission. So I say never submit. I could have said never Islam, because As a Christian, I'm seeing today the rabid push against Christians out of the Middle East. The very cradle of Christianity is being emptied literally of all Christians. And what are we doing? We're sitting on the sideline as the United States under the Obama administration watching this take place. And I document, the terrible things that are happening over there in terms of, the depleting numbers. 15% of the Middle East population was Christian not all that long ago. Today it's dwindling below 3%.
Yeah.
I talk about the specific perpetrators, and I explain that, Islam in the Middle East, like it or not, tends to be pretty stark. And when you bring people to this country, they tend to mellow it out. And yet, recent polling evidence is that the Muslims in this country, there is a subset, a plurality, that believe in the imposition of Sharia law, that believe that violent jihad is justifiable to get Sharia law, that believe that if their prophet is denigrated, that they can use violence against those people. So we are talking about a subset of 1.6 billion people, some of which are violent. And they're not only killing Christians in the Middle East, but as we see in Western Europe today, we have a very serious problem, because 80% of those that are immigrating into Western Europe happen to be young men, and they're doing things that are not in the best interest of Western Europe. And, of course, it's really causing quite a stir. So those are the types of issues that we go through here. I have a campaign plan at the end that talks about local threats to our schools, to our laws, to our prisons, to our entire community in terms of what pastors ought to be saying. And then, of course, I provide historical context on the 8 conditions of genocide and what has happened in that part of the world and how we have facilitated to a certain degree what's going on. Certainly the implications for the Middle East, should all Christians be removed, the implications for the globe in terms of what's going on against Christianity today, and of course, the president's, the current president's agenda and his foreign policy and how it has rankly failed from the beginning of the June '09 speech there at the Cairo University, where he said he wants to turn over a new leaf with regard to the Middle East, and all he has done is unleashed terrible things across the entire region, to the point that it's almost chaos in the entire region.
Yeah. And Bob, listen, folks, listen, my guest is Lieutenant Colonel Robert McGinnis, and he's written this brand new book entitled Never Submit. And as you know, listeners, and as he just pointed out, the word submit, of course, that's what Islam means in Arabic, submit or submission. Never submit, never Islam. Will the extermination of Christians get worse before it gets better? And published by Defender Publishing. The gentleman that owns that's a very dear friend of mine, and so I'm just honored to be able to have you here, Bob. But no, you're absolutely right. And the thing about it is, Obama's reaction to all this has been appalling to people like you and me, Christians, citizens, patriots, Constitution-loving, constitutional republic-loving folks. We look at his reaction, and it's appalling, or lack of reaction in most cases. But the thing is, Bob, I was live on air when Arab Spring broke out. I was live on air. And I can remember when the headlines popped up on Drudge during my show that intel was coming out of Great Britain that Obama and the State Department, Hillary Clinton, were behind and instigating Arab Spring. I mean, I remember that day, and I remember reporting that, and then I remember I've got contacts inside Israel, as I'm sure you do, but I've got some pretty deep contacts inside Israel, and I remember speaking to them, and they were going out of their minds, Bob. They were saying, don't they know they're going to open up a Pandora's box? They're going to cause an Islamic uprising that's going to sweep the Middle East. It's going to destroy Christianity, and they're going to aim their sights at Israel. And here we are, Bob, and that's exactly what's happened. So if Obama and Hillary started it on purpose, and now we're watching their reaction or lack of reaction to it, what should that tell us?
Well, certainly, if you want to go to Zechariah, the Israel being the target, we see the Iranians are after Israel, and all the Arab neighbors are after Israel. Yeah. Obama pushed Hosni Mubarak under the bus. He installed Mohammed Morsi,
yep,
a Muslim Brotherhood that, of course, spun off al-Qaeda. He has done everything he possibly can to promote that. And, of course, Morsi was toppled by President Sisi, then General Sisi. And the country today is an Islamic nightmare for Coptic Christians who are being killed left and right. And, of course, they have an insurgency with ISIS in the Sinai. And just recently, according to Jane's 360, they have an insurgency building in the west. Then you have Libya. Gaddafi was working with us. He was giving us all sorts
yes,
of intelligence.
Yes.
So what did we do? We said he must go. And then the spring just sprung over there. They destroyed that country. It's still in chaos even today. Then, of course, Hillary and others said that we could work with the moderate man in Damascus by the name of Bashir Assad. And, of course, now 250,000 deaths later, that country is in terrible civil war. The same thing in Iraq. We left Iraq in December of 11. Iraq was a stable country. It was a fairly secure country, and now it's in the hands of the Islamists from Tehran. And, of course, ISIS controls everything from Ramadi north, and it's chaotic, and we don't expect that country to be put back together. The entire region, Yemen, even Saudi Arabia, and the Emirates, you look across that, go as far as Pakistan and the ISIS problems they're having in Afghanistan, Central Asia, the Caucasus. The entire region is in flames, and to a certain degree, we can point a finger and say the Obama administration shares culpability here because it has failed consistently in its foreign policy. And as a direct result, we're seeing floods, millions of people that want to leave the region. Why?
Yeah.
Because there's no hope in the region,
yeah,
and especially for Christians.
Yeah, and Bob, listen, we're going to have to take a time out, but here's the thing, Bob. Listen, either Obama and the people he has surrounded himself with are the most inept people in the world, or there's some type of a purposed movement in all of this. I don't know. Listen, when we come back, I'll get you to comment on that. So, Bob, listen, let's get back to the discussion. We've only got a few more moments left, but let me just ask you your quick opinion. We teased the audience going out, but I still maintain that either Obama and the people he has surrounded himself with are completely inept, especially in Middle Eastern affairs. And I can't believe everybody that's influencing him up there are this inept, or there's some kind of purpose design behind what you and I would see as ineptness, or most citizens would see. How do you see it? Do you think I'm off base by saying it's got to be one of those two things?
I think it is maybe a little of both. You have a bunch of political spinners, young people that were hired right off the campaign trail that Obama brought in and put into positions where they have no background. Now, I talk about some of this and never submit because I've been doing this for over 40 years, this sort of military stuff and national security. I know people that go into the Obama White House and that do briefings that work with those people, and they tell me, without exception, that there are a lot of sycophants in there when they deal with the president. They know the ideological spin the president wants to put on this, and so they turn blinders to what the facts are. And there have been some very tragic circumstances where they've been told the truth and they've turned it upside down. So you have some of that. Then you have some people that really are ideologically spun up. They want to do something that is absolutely contrary to what I would do in a national security, foreign affairs situation, and they're having some success because they have the full might of the U.S. government, the U.S. military, the Treasury behind them, and the president seems to be going along with that. So that means to me that the president endorses that particular persuasion, that particular direction, and when I look across the Middle East, that's resulting in the deaths of a lot of Christians and the terrible situation that we see across that entire region today.
Yeah. And I'm telling you, you don't have to comment on this, Bob, but I want to go to another thing, but I can't help but to believe. I don't know that Obama is a get down on your knees, praying on a rug, reading the Quran 5 times a day Muslim, but he certainly has been influenced from childhood by Islam and the Sunni sect of Islam. And it just seems that he just caters to it constantly. And now here we are, Arab Spring, ISIS, and now Christians being slaughtered, beheaded, stoning, burying alive, burned at the stake, drowned in cages, burned in cages, crucified, thousands of girls and women being taken as sex slaves. Bob, and these guys have an apocalyptic vision and mission, don't they?
Well, they do. They're emulating the 7th century prophet Muhammad. They look like him, they grow their beards like him, they speak like him using eschatology and the terms that are associated with places like Dabiq. They practice the hadiths that say to behead, to take sex slaves. If you read the New York Times article about sex slaves that they took and how they pray before they rape a woman and how they pray afterwards and thank Allah that this was okay. The New York Times is publishing that stuff. Obama spoke in Cairo in 2009, didn't tell the Israelis what he was going to say, which of course broke all precedents up to that time. And he said, we're going to have a new age in the Middle East. The U.S. is going to take the lead, and as a result, we have the Arab Spring, which has destroyed most of the region. When I asked Franklin Graham whether or not he thought the president was a Christian, he says, well, he says he's a Christian, but then Franklin Graham said, look, his father was a Muslim. He went to an Indonesian Muslim school. He has a Muslim viewpoint of the world. He is apologetic to Muslims. He's attacking Christians. I don't know if the guy's a Christian or not, but I see no evidence of it.
Yeah, no, I see no evidence either. And of course, I know what you mean when you say, I don't know if the guy's a Christian or not, because you and I are not his judge, obviously, and ultimately the judge is the Lord God of the universe. But what you and I know of biblical Christianity, Jesus-loving, born-again, Spirit-filled, church-going, Bible-believing Christians, he is not. He is not that. I mean, he's the antithesis of all of that. I mean, he's for partial birth abortion and homosexual marriage and on and on and on it goes. Anti-Israel. He seems to be anti-Semitic. I don't know, but unprecedented turning of our back on Israel, Bob. What's that about?
Yeah. Well, he's done things that I have never associated with biblical Christianity. Yeah. And you've named many of them, Carl, and there are more. And so if he cares about the United States, and maybe he does, I don't know, then he wouldn't be doing the types of things that are resulting not only in ruining our foreign policy with many of our nations. We are pushing many of our old allies into the arms of the Russians, into the arms of the Chinese, who are our enemies. They want to kill us. And, of course, these Islamists, why aren't we doing away with them? And yet they are ravaging the entire region, and of course they're coming to our country, and the president's making excuses.
Making excuses.
That is not patriotism.
I know. Listen, we're slap out of time. Bob, can I have you back in the future? I got to have you back.
Please.
All right, we will. Thank you so much for being here.